And now, a proposal so obvious that it is frankly embarrassing that no one has floated it seriously yet. Canada and Australia should merge into one country. Before you swipe away, hear me out. We share the same king. What's his name? The Westminster parliamentary system, being overshadowed by louder English-speaking countries. We both pack both our citizens into a thin strip while pretending the enormous empty interior is a selling point. The combined land area would be 17 million square kilometers. We would be the largest country in the world. Between us, we're already the sexiest, although the Aussies are carrying most of that weight for us. The cultural fit is so good, it is almost suspicious. We both have universal health care, although Canada will be happy to upgrade Australia to our better version of it. We both produce excellent athletes, mediocre action movies, and citizens who apologize when a stranger bumps into them.
No, sorry, that was me.
Sorry about that.
No, really, sorry. You go ahead.
Sorry again.
Yeah, sure.
Australia has Vegemite, Canada has poutine, neither makes any sense to outsiders, and both inspire an almost religious fervor among locals. How has this not happened yet? We're already the same country, separated by what? Like an ocean? A few billion years of continental drift, which is about how long it takes the average American to find either of our countries on a map. Our combined GDP, $4 trillion. We're both already in the G20, both OECD members. We both have resource-heavy economies sitting on absurd national wealth. Iron ore, oil sands, coal, lithium, wheat, timber, passive aggression, all under one flag. We would basically be a giant warehouse store that also has free doctor visits and a surprisingly good film tax credit. Now, there are complications. Obviously, the time zone thing would be a bureaucratic nightmare, really. The Aussies have 3, we have 5, 5.5 in Newfoundland. National animal, the beaveroo. National sport, fuck, I don't know, ice cricket? Sporty ball, we'll figure something out. Then there is the subject of language. We would have to teach the Aussies French. And since the Quebecois are busy, it would fall on us Anglophones, which means a lot of time spent asking which library Jacques and Marie should search for the pencil in. The flag writes itself. Take the maple leaf, just throw it on there a bunch of times, problem solved. The bigger question is what we call it. Aus Canada sounds like a pharmaceutical company. Can Australia sounds like someone mispronouncing an Italian city. My personal suggestion is we just call ourselves the country. But let's do this. Tell me in the comments what we should name this thing, and I will pick the best and formally petition both governments into merging. You think I'm joking? I have never been more serious about anything in my life, and I once spent 40 minutes writing to Via Rail about their soup. Look, we've built entire national identities around not being American and surviving seasons that try to kill us. That's a foundation. That's a constitution. Somebody drop the papers.
I like this guy. Honestly, we could take over the world. Just combine Canada and Australia and all the world's problems would be solved. Love it. That guy was kind of amusing. I've got a combination of things that I'm going to go through today. First of all, apologies for being late. Also, apologies ahead of time. Oh no! Oh crap! How bad's the echo? Do I need to do something with my audio? Okay, if I push the mic right back. Okay, how bad? Is it just you, Bonza, or is anyone else? Okay, everyone else is saying they've got no echo. It could be that I have moved the mic back. Maybe the mic was a little bit too close. This was the last minute jump in. I was unsure about going live this morning because I think it's just you, Crazy. You might have to go out and come back in. I wasn't sure about doing a live this morning because I'm babysitting my sister's chihuahua, so I have the added chaos of Jasper in the background. I think he's settled now, but you may get a little bit of barking or craziness in the background. I have got a few spare videos queued up just in case things go completely crazy. So if I'm partway through talking about something and I pop in the Anita video or something, you'll know that's why. I'm just trying to settle down crazy dogs. So, first of all, I do owe people an apology. I jumped out of yesterday's live, yesterday's regular live, without any warning. I just reached a point where I was a little bit too emotional, and it was just better for me to just get out of there. It wasn't going to end well, so I hit the end stream button. I had a lot that I still wanted to talk about, but it was a choice. So the original plan was for me to jump in and tackle some more of the Janie audio. There's not much left to go. However, I realised that having played those clips at the beginning of yesterday's live stream, I really didn't get as far as discussing the reasoning behind why I played them. Like, I think you guys can figure it out, but I did want to go into it a bit more. So I thought I'd start with them. Alana, I wouldn't so much put it as a rage quit. I got really, really upset. I just have this notion in my head that everyone's here for Lily and Jack. And when people start showing their motives and they show that Lily and Jack is not a priority for them, it becomes really upsetting. And, to have to come out in defense of Belinda and Chelsea when someone is trying to gaslight me, someone is trying to lie to me and say that, well, these maps that were previously publicly available, they're still available to family members like Belinda and Chelsea, even though prior to the live I'd had a conversation with Chelsea and I knew full well that none of the family had access to the maps. And that, like I said, there were people who had had their access removed, who had their own private tracks recorded on there and had lost their own search history. So I guess probably I was a little bit angry, but I think for the most part I was upset. I was really trying hard not to burst into tears by the end of yesterday's live stream. I found it quite disrespectful. And look, I have to say, I had a bit of a debrief with my mods afterwards, and I am not someone who censors anyone on my channel. It's not me. It's not how I function. I value everyone's opinions, and I feel that if we can't accept other people's opinions, other people's beliefs, we're going to get stuck in our own little holes, and we're not going to look at other possibilities. And what does that help? That doesn't achieve anything. I couldn't tell you how many times since I've started covering this case that I've shifted my perspective a little bit thanks to other people sharing their opinions and me listening to them and thinking, you know what, there is something in that. And, if someone gives you their perspective on something and you can step back instead of going, I disagree, you can step back, look at what they're saying, apply a bit of logic and critical thinking to what they're saying, then you're going to do better than if you just completely outright dismiss what they're saying. So I've always been strongly in favour of allowing people to share their comments on my channel, sometimes to my own detriment. I know sometimes that I let people go too far. And I think that this is what I discussed with my mods yesterday, that I was happy for him to be saying what he said, sharing his perspective. But when he said, I'm leaving, and then he came back, and it seemed like he was here just to stir up trouble, just to try and create an argument. And it was just pushing things beyond what was acceptable. I think at that point in time, I should have made the choice to put him on timeout for like 24 hours. But I allowed him to stay because of my belief in allowing people to share their opinions. So, I realise now that I need to draw the line, and while I am going to be more than happy to accept people's opinions, while I'm more than happy to discuss things on my live streams where people have a different perspective from me, then at the same time, I'm going to draw the line and say that if I am happy to discuss things with you respectfully here on my channel, then you should be happy with that. And if you are going to come back at me and disrespect me after I've shown respect for you in terms of discussing your perspective and things like that, it's the moment someone starts taking it too far, I'm going to have to time them out. It's not fair on me. It's not fair on the people who are here for the right reasons, and it hijacks the conversation. So no, I'm not going to start blocking everyone who disagrees with me. I will never do that. I'm not going to start timing out everyone who says something that I don't like. But I am going to draw a line in terms of people need to understand what's respectful. And if you just decide to come back at me just because you can, you're going to get timed out. I think, that's going to have to be my approach from here on in. I have timed out so few people since I started doing my regular live streams. Yeah, that's what timed out means. So when someone comes into chat and they're being problematic, we have choices. We can just block them outright if they're a troll that we've never come across before and they're just being extremely offensive. Or if it is someone who is just overstepping the boundaries, then we have a choice. We can put them in timeout, and we have a choice in terms of it can be 5 minutes, it can be an hour, or it can be 24 hours. Deciding which way to go can be challenging, but in terms of, if you're going to come in and you're just going to continue to push it, you're going to get 24-hour timeout, meaning that you will not be able to comment at all for the rest of the live stream. And, if it's something where someone keeps coming into live streams and doing the same thing, then eventually they're going to get themselves blocked. Because I value the community that I have here on my channel. I value the respect that everyone has for each other. So I don't want to see that hijacked by one or two people who have their own agenda and don't have respect for me, my subscribers, the other people in chat. to me, that's just, too much. Now, I did have notes of things that I probably needed to discuss. Just having a look, and I can't find where I put my notes. Usually I'm better organised than this, but I was umming and ahhing about doing today's live stream. Wednesdays are a maybe, maybe not for me, depending on what's going on. I knew I had Jasper coming, and I was going to have to, gauge it in terms of what he was like, because sometimes he's just too crazy for me to do anything. So I hadn't really done my preparation until about 9:45 when I said to my mods, yeah, I'm going to go live. It didn't seem like anyone else was going to go live. So I thought, okay, well, if Jasper calms down, I'll go live. So I haven't had the usual preparation time that I do before my live streams. So I am a little bit disorganized, but just go with me. I have at least got all my clips together. I think it's more about that whole mental discombobulation that happens, when you've got ADHD, you need mental preparation time as well. So I think that's where I'm at the moment, just trying to get that mental preparation going at the same time and realising there's a few things that I forgot. Anyway, if I remember what it was I was going to discuss, I will bring it up later on in the live stream. So, like I said, there's a number of clips that I played at the start of yesterday's live stream that I said at the beginning I'll go into these further at the end. And then, of course, I didn't because I ended the live stream. So I'm going to play them and do a bit of a discussion on them. And then hopefully we'll still get some time to go through some of the Janie audio. But I just feel that this is something that I want to tackle first. So I'll bring this one up first. I hope I've got the right clips. I'm pretty sure.
It says in the documents that we heard them in the next room over, like in their bedroom. I didn't hear them in their bedroom. I heard when Lily would pop in, I heard Jack in the kitchen.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I heard him rustling around in the kitchen, right? But then when me and Malaya made our way out to the kitchen, there was nothing moved. The chairs were still perfectly in place. There was no chairs pulled up against the counter for them to, they usually would jump up and take food if they wanted, because kids always do that, right? They would go into the fridge. They would go into the other pantry and grab food if they wanted. Like, they had unlimited food if they wanted to grab it. And, they would go into the fridge, take yogurt cups and eat them, or cereal or whatever. So, but nothing was moved, Daniel. Nothing was moved.
I just realised that's actually not the clip that I was looking for. So, change of plans. It looks like I am going to go with the Janie side of things first, and then I will come back to discussing the other clips. But also, this is a reminder for me that I need to mention this. So, for anyone who is in the area, 2nd of May, we have the gathering for Lily and Jack at 2 p.m. I'm sure that Belinda and all her family would greatly appreciate the support of anyone who's going to be there for Lily and Jack. So just a reminder of that. So I think I'm like a little bit nervous about pressing play now, because I'm not sure if I have got the right video. But I think we're going to go on to the Janie audio. I played that Daniel clip because it's him talking about, this is something that he threw in just for the turkey guy, talking about the kids going in the kitchen. But note how he's talking about how, they have access to all these things. They can get food out of the cupboard and they can get stuff out of the fridge and stuff. But the terminology he's using is words like take, grab. It's not anything like they can help themselves to. This is coming after people have criticised the locks on the fridge and stuff like that. Yeah. He's and also minimizing. He's over explaining. He's minimizing. He's just putting in an excuse here because he knows people have commented on the living situation. He knows people have picked up on the images of the locks on like the fridge and the cupboard doors and stuff. So now he's basically trying to tell people that, yeah, the kids didn't have limited access to food or anything. But the thing is, if you're going to over-explain it like that, to me that says that he is basically justifying the fact that the kids were restricted in terms of access to food. Farm Girl, I agree. Just trying to find that. Whoops. Yeah, well, this too. Nobody asked about that. He offered that extra bit of information. And when someone offers extra information like that, you've got to ask why. Because usually there's an important reason. And like I said, I believe this is because people have questioned whether or not the children were given free access to food, because there were locks on all the doors and everything. Yep, I agree, Farm Girl. I can't see that they would be climbing up on things to get at things in the kitchen, because from what we're learning, I think they would have been too scared to do so because he would have flipped his lid. I think, sadly, Lily and Jack knew what they could and couldn't do in that household without life becoming difficult. We know... Oh, Jasper, hang on. And of course, the little turd's wagging his tail, looking at me like, what am I doing wrong? While he's barking at Mouse because Mouse wants a nap and Jasper wants to play. Now I've... Yes, Fred, he does do that. He speeds up when he's lying. He also gets lots of pauses and stuff. But the over-explaining, not just they have access to all these foods, but then he's throwing in the types of foods as well to make it sound like they have this real paradise, They have this major smorgasbord that they can access. It's... He's basically... Yeah, where is that? Just trying to find what Charlotte said because that is spot on. Daniel himself said that they stashed food and snacks under their beds. That is not children who have ready access to food. You give children ready access to food, they have no need to hide snacks and food under their bed because they can just go to the cupboard and get what they need when they need it. And I know people have gone, well, that's why you put locks on cupboards so that they're not just going and raiding the cupboards. Well, I don't get that. My generation grew up without locks on cupboards. And the food that we were allowed to have was in reach. Yeah, my mum, like so many other mothers, had a stash of secret chocolates and secret lollies hidden in the crock pot in the top of the cupboard. And me being ADHD, I was a good climber, so I knew they were there. I don't think any of my other siblings did, but I knew they were there, so I would climb up the cupboard and grab something out of there occasionally. But for the most part, it wasn't that I was doing that because we were starving. I was doing that because I was ADHD and I knew there was a secret stash of treats. But you know, if children have a routine, then you don't really need to lock the cupboards. You know, my cousin had this great setup with her kids where they would come home after school and she had little snack tubs set up in the cupboard where basically this is the snack tub. When you come home from school, you can pull the snack tub out and you can fill up this bowl with whatever snacks you want. And that's, that way you're making that choice. You're getting your own snacks and you know what you're allowed to have. And her kids were great with that. But Daniel is over explaining here. He's throwing in about how they're having that, they've got access to yogurt and stuff like that. So, trying to say, oh, they've got the healthy foods. Well, I could BS on that. It just sounds like an outright lie. So now let's see if I have got the right audio here of Janie. Just cross your fingers for a moment. Hope this is the right clip because this should lead on.
So we've seen pictures of Lily standing in front of a fridge that appears to have a child lock on it. Was the refrigerator or cupboards in the trailer locked?
Yes, there was a lock on because Jack would get in there and take everything out of the fridge.
As toddlers do. My granddaughter, she's a toddler right now, and she takes everything out of one of the cupboards and gets into the cupboard. So I understand.
Okay, but Jack's 4. He's not a toddler. Or he was 4. Yes, Alana, that was the first thing that I was going to point out. Janie knew that she had to actually respond by acknowledging the fact that there are photos that show the child locks on the fridge and the cupboard doors. So she couldn't deny it. So what does she do? You get this really long pause, and then she's still not ready, so you get the and then you get the yes. And then, even more stalling, she repeats the part of the question. There was a lock on. So, lots and lots of stalling there before giving an answer. And then straight up, she has to go and blame it on Jack again. They always blame it on Jack. Yeah. Spot on, farm girl. She did not want to admit to it. She was backed into a corner. She had absolutely no choice in the matter. So she's trying to figure out how to tackle it, doing all the pausing, throwing in the ums and the yes, and then she turns around and blames it on Jack. Like, yeah, let's just blame it on Jack, as per usual. Buttercup, you are spot on. If you're going to lock your fridge and your cupboard because you have a child who's going to pull everything out of the cupboard, then maybe you should actually have what they want out available in canisters on a bench top or something so they can access it. But you know what? The photos that we see, or the video where the kids are twirling, you don't see any containers or canisters on the counter with like that would be biscuit containers or anything. But Jack's 4. Well, Jack was 4. So if hypothetically he really was going and pulling everything out of the fridge or everything out of the cupboards, he's old enough to have that explained to him that this is not what you do. And you know what? A 4-year-old can't reach the top shelves of a fridge. So if there's something in the fridge that you don't want him pulling out, put it on the top shelves. If you put things in the fridge that the child can eat, that the child has access to, he's not going to pull everything out and sit it on the floor. But I don't believe this story in one bit. We have Daniel claiming that Malaya couldn't control the kids, but, you know, he was able to manage them, and he's the one that basically ran the household in terms of how the kids behaved. Do you seriously think that Daniel would allow that sort of behaviour? No. Especially not from children that were not his own. So if Jack ever had done that, I would imagine he only ever did it once, and that there was major repercussions for it. In fact, I would imagine that maybe this is based on a story from when they first moved in, and Jack was maybe 2 and just learning to get into things. Because that's the age when kids do get into things. But if you have children who are hiding food in their bedrooms, who are allegedly pulling food out of the cupboards and stuff like that and getting into things they're not meant to, maybe you should look at what you are providing those children. What these people are doing is they are deflecting. Yeah. Everyone I know that's used child locks has done so for cupboards with things that the kids didn't need to get into. The crockery, cleaning stuff, all your detergents and stuff. I've actually never come across anyone who's used a fridge lock. Now, I could imagine that if you had a toddler, a little kid who is just starting to get about and, you know, get into things like they do, you know, a little kid that's maybe 18 months old, 2 years old, then maybe. But can we just acknowledge here that from what we've been told, Meadow wasn't actually walking or crawling at that point in time. So the child locks weren't there for Meadow. The child locks were to control access to food. And again, who gets the blame? Jack. Seems like anytime they get called out for anything in relation to the children, they turn around and they blame it on Jack.
That the purpose was not to stop them from eating, I assume.
Well, why do they make locks for fridge? Why do they make locks for cupboards? It's to keep kids out so they won't get in and make a mess of it. I can remember when my kids were small, they got in my fridge and they had eggs and everything all over the floor.
Well, Janie, if your kids did that, then that was basically you not teaching them good behaviour. And I'm pretty certain that was something that would have only ever happened once. Because when kids do dumb things like that, they learn pretty quickly not to do it again. If you are actually parenting. Yeah, yeah. It's the teenagers that are the ones that constantly raid the fridge and the cupboards and empty them. Um, you know, I I think back to when I was a kid. We came home. We went into the pantry cupboard, we got ourselves our own snacks. Um, if there was something in the fridge that we wanted, we'd get something out of the fridge. I don't ever recall spreading stuff out of the cupboard. The only time as a teenager, I will say, that I ever pulled everything out of one part of the cupboard was when I decided to tidy all the Tupperware containers that Mum had, because as a teenager, it was driving me nuts that I'd open the cupboard door and they'd fall out. So I did the proactive thing and I pulled them all out and I stacked them all. But that's not the same as claiming that kids are going in and basically pulling everything out of the cupboards and raiding the cupboards. Honestly, teenagers, where they put it all, who knows? Yeah, when I first moved to Bendigo, my niece and nephew were still in high school, and I had to have a stash of food here for when they came over to visit, because the first thing they would do would be they'd come in and they'd be hungry. So I always had to make sure that there were snacks here for when my sister came for a visit with her kids. Um, and one of the things I noticed when the oldest one headed off to university was that all of a sudden my grocery bill went down, because even just from them visiting a few times a week, I had to have a stash of food on hand. So yeah, I get the teenager thing completely. But this deflection, this whole idea of, oh, well, why else do they have locks on fridge doors? Seriously? Again, like I said, if you've got a toddler, a 2 or a 3-year-old, who maybe is someone who gets into things, but it wasn't an issue at that point with Meadow. And Jack and Lily were old enough to know better. Jack and Lily were old enough that if that ever happened, it was only going to ever happen once. So this is full-on deflection from Janie. And then trying to claim that, well, hey, Daniel and Justin did it when they were kids, so why not put locks on doors? Well, I'm willing to bet, for starters, when Daniel and Justin were kids, I'd imagine Janie probably didn't put locks on her fridge or her doors, because they were probably only just newly available at that point in time. Someone living in a country area, growing up with, traditional upbringing, do you really think Janie would have done that? No. If they'd have done something like that, they would have got into so much trouble that they would have never done it again. So, again, this is pure deflection and trying to deny what is so obvious. Yeah, we used to do a lot of cooking as kids. We actually had our own little kids cookbook that we could cook things from, and the cookbook for for pikelets and things like that was always splattered with ingredients, because I think from, once we were tall enough to reach the stovetop, we were making things like pikelets and pancakes and anything that we could learn to make. My sister made her first pavlova when she was probably 10, I think. I know I was a teenager when I made my first pavlova. So, yeah, you teach kids how to fend for themselves. You teach kids how to be responsible with food. Like, the deflection here just makes me really angry.
So yeah, that's why they make them, so your kids won't get in and destroy all your food. It wasn't to keep them from not eating.
So your kids won't get in and destroy all your food. Hands up if you as a child, or if your children, or if you've got grandchildren, hands up if anyone you know has ever gone into the kitchen and destroyed all your food. Because that's generally not how it works. Exactly, Bonza. My cousin, when her kids were growing up, used to have a one day a week when one of the children would prepare dinner. And obviously an adult would help them with it. But basically, and we're talking at that point in time, I think her youngest was 8, her oldest was about 14. And they would choose what they want to make for dinner. And then if they needed help with an adult would help them do all the preparation. And then they would be the person who has cooked dinner for everyone. And it was a great learning experience for them. And I know, for me as a teenager, because my mum, like my dad left when I was 12. So when I was in high school, my mum wouldn't finish work till 5 o'clock. And then it would take her an hour to get home. And she would have had a long day. She would be hungry by the time she got home. So it just became routine that I would cook dinner on a weeknight, because that way we got to eat at a reasonable time. And that's from like 12 onwards. So, yeah, involve children with food preparation. I mean, I can remember even when I was really little, before I could even properly see the stovetop, I used to watch Dad when he was cooking dinner, and I used to pester him for his recipes. Dad never worked with recipes, he just made it up as he went along. So he would have to then tell me what he was, I'd be wanting to write down the recipe, and he'd be like, well, I don't know how much of this I put in. So, you can involve kids that way and teach them how to fend for themselves. And you're not going to see them going in and destroying all the food. So, again, this is nothing but deflection. This is excuses. And again, this is blaming Jack. It shows you how much resentment that Janie and Daniel had for Jack. And that's really sad.
Kids ate. I mean, they ate. Okay, here's another thing. They were saying that.
I'll run that back just a little bit.
So yeah, that's why they make them, so your kids won't get in and destroy all your food. It wasn't to keep them from not eating. Those kids ate. I mean, they ate. Okay, here's.
Did you hear the emphasis on that? Those kids ate. I mean, they ate. The way she said that, the way she had to. Yeah, Gypsy. The way she had to repeat it and say they ate, it comes across to me as resentful. As they were taking resources that weren't intended for them. Yeah, Gypsy destroying food, taking food from us. But the emphasis on, you know, I mean, they ate. I'm guessing basically they were eating things that had been bought as special treats for Daniel's children, for starters. Clearly, there is a resentment here in terms of what the children were actually eating. And I think this goes back to Janie talking about when her grandchildren were there and the fridge in her RV was like a store fridge. They could just go in and get what they wanted. Her grandchildren could, but not Lily and Jack. So again, I think what she is conveying here is a resentment of perhaps some of the things that they were given that were perhaps reserved for her grandchildren. Maybe to me, there's also maybe some resentment of the cost of feeding the children. Because when you hear someone say, like, yeah, trust me, they ate, I would expect that to come from someone who's talking about their 14-year-old nephew. Not someone talking about a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. There's definitely resentment there from Janie, in my opinion.
Thing. They were saying that Grampy would take food down to those kids. Well, do you know what? Grandparents do take stuff to their grandkids. They would come over, I would give them stuff. I'd give them treats. I'd give them stuff. They're just kids. Okay, when Malaya would make chili, Daniel would take a bowl over to me. When she'd make stew, Daniel would take a bowl over to me. Does that mean that I'm neglected and I was starving? No. When I go to somebody's house, I usually bring them coffee or donuts. Does that mean that they're starving? No, that's just being nice.
First of all, does anyone think that Malaya actually cooked things like stew and chili? I'd imagine that would have been a very rare event, given the account that we have from Belinda of Malaya basically just giving tidbits to Meadow when she was at Cindy's place and Cindy had to turn around and cook for Meadow. So I have questions about Malaya actually cooking for them. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if that was the sort of household where the only time that proper meals got made were if Daniel made them. Because I just can't see Malaya doing that. I think there was probably just a lot of junk given to those children. I think I really find it questionable. I'd be very surprised if it was a regular thing of Malaya actually cooking things. Yeah, we've heard that Earl used to regularly take food around for them. Yeah, you're right, Lucy. And there's no little funny anecdotes here about, Jack would come in and he loved to eat all the Oreo biscuits or something like that. It's all about, resentment of them accessing food. It's all about, can we get her recipes? I'm guessing she probably doesn't have recipes. I would imagine that if Malaya cooked chili, it probably came out of a can. Likewise with stew, maybe that came out of a can. But yeah, you're right. There's nothing here from Janie that sounds remotely like she really gave a damn about these children. It's nothing positive here at all. Now, I will say though, I must admit, as someone who loves cooking, as someone who lives on their own and only has so much freezer space, the number of times when I've sent my sister a message and said, I've got too much of, like, most recently, I did a massive batch of sweet potato and pumpkin soup, and I had so much that I wasn't going to get through it. So the other day I sent my sister a message and said, look, do you want to come around for lunch tomorrow? You bring the rolls because I've got too much soup. Or times when she's here and I send things home with her for my brother-in-law to eat because I've just got too much of something that I've cooked. So I understand that. I can't see that it would have happened very often with Malaya and Daniel because, like I said, I can't see Malaya being much of a cook. I agree. I was always raised that if you're going around to visit someone, you do take something with you. Sorry, someone slammed a door outside. I can see where Janie's coming with that. It's, I guess for my generation, it is, or at least here in Australia, it is just common courtesy to, if you're going around to someone's place, to take some biscuits with you or something. So, I mean, Janie's got a point here, but I think what she's doing is she's deflecting. The simple question was about the locks on the fridge and the cupboard doors. And yet Janie has given a full-on essay about how the kids were looked after in terms of food, about why they didn't have access, like, directly to the cupboards, about her children doing all these things. She's gone over the top to justify and to blame Jack. Like, if it was a simple case of, yeah, we had to put them on there because Jack would get in and he'd spill things and, something like that, you would just say it like that. You wouldn't need to then continue to justify yourself. What she's saying is basically admitting here that, yes, they were given restricted access. And these kids were probably damn hungry.
Those kids were not neglected. They had, as I said, they had a roof over their head, they had water, they had food, they had clothing.
My kids are full grown and they have lives and kids of their own. And anytime I go there, I take groceries. I just do. My mom used to do it for me too, I don't know. I don't even know where that came from. I
When
don't
Earl
know that
cooks
I
up
have
at his
anything.
house, when Earl cooks up at his house and he makes too much, he brings it down to me.
Okay. Now, I can appreciate that Charmaine is trying to put Janie at ease here to continue the conversation and get more out of her. But I wish she wouldn't agree so much in terms of throwing in her perspective to support what Janie's saying. I understand where she's coming from, but for me, it feels like she's siding with Janie, even though I realise that probably the goal here is to put Janie at ease. Hemi. Oh dear, I probably shouldn't pin that for too long. Whoops. I can't get rid of it. Yeah, Charmaine didn't ask the hard questions. Maybe her goal was to just make Janie comfortable so that she would come back in future, and then maybe she's going to ask the hard questions then. But there was certainly no hard questions, and she was supporting Janie when Janie was offering justifications that were probably not realistic, to put it nicely. But again, Janie's gone back to saying they're not neglected because they had a roof over their head and they had water and they had food and clothing. I spoke about this in the previous Janie video. There is so much more to providing for your children than simply making sure they've got a roof over their head and food and water and clothing. So, again, deflection completely. Yep. I agree, Bonza. Oh dear. Janie keeps talking about adults cooking and sharing food. This is completely different from two children not having access to food. Yeah, she's gone off topic big time. Summer Breeze, thank you so much. Very much appreciated. She's going above and beyond in terms of trying to justify things, in trying to deflect. What's this got to do with the locks on the cupboard doors in the fridge? Because honestly, she's gone beyond that. Yeah, Daphne, when my sister's kids were little, my brother-in-law, her husband, was only just starting out in his career. She was doing the at-home mum thing. And they were going without to make sure that their kids had what they needed. And we're talking about kids with food sensitivities, so some of the things that Rachel's kids needed were a bit more expensive than just your average stuff. And I remember seeing she had a whiteboard on the side of the fridge that was a wish list for her and her husband. And it was just really mundane things that, for me, as a single person who didn't have to worry about that sort of thing, would, if I wanted something like that, then yeah, if I could afford it next pay, I'd get it. Whereas my sister and her husband just made so many sacrifices for their children because that's what you do. So yeah, it's just, it's the way it happens. So it concerns me the level of justification that Janie is putting in here, because to me that suggests that she knew full well that these children were not getting properly fed, were not being properly looked after. It's Yeah, it's sad.
And there's another thing that I'm going to, Anita, sorry, Anita says that Earl abused me when I was with him. Well, Anita, that's a bunch of bullshit.
I
Earl did
was
not
actually going to
abuse me.
say, I was just going to say, I'm going to give you the floor for a few minutes, for whatever you want to say. I know that there's a lot more on your chest that you want to get off your chest, and now is your opportunity again.
So we've moved on clearly from talking about the food situation. Janie has decided to throw in something that's going to be a perfect deflection because she's not comfortable with the topic. So what is she going to do? She's going to go with the most controversial thing that she can throw in to distract people from what is being said here. So straight away, she goes on to talking about Anita. She thought she bought them bagels at Tim Hortons. How can a mother not know what they bought for their children while they were out and about? And there's no specifics in terms of that Thursday evening, in terms of what they had, what they ate. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're taking your kids out somewhere, how can you not know what it is that you fed them? I'm willing to bet that she did not buy them bagels at Tim Hortons. And that either they were not given anything while they were out, or maybe while they were in Dollarama, she bought them a bag of lollies to shut them up. Yeah, good question. Who knows what that something was that they got for supper? Malaya probably doesn't know either. Honestly, it's sad, the neglect that these children were subjected to, in my opinion. Well, I've been told that bagels that we have here in Australia don't compare to the real bagels that you get in the United States. So I don't like bagels. They don't do anything for me, but I've not tried proper bagels from the United States, which are supposedly really good. So I can't offer judgment on that. But yeah, they don't do anything for me at all. Just reading people's comments right now. Oh, okay. They're boiled. Are they in something when they're boiled to get that shape? Yeah, see, I've heard that fresh bagels from somewhere in the United States, like New York or something, with cream cheese are divine. But I can't gauge that because the only place I've ever been outside of Australia is New Zealand. We're not bagel people down here in Australia and New Zealand. So, it's not something that we know how to do very well. So the few times I've tried bagels here in Australia, they've basically been in a bag from the supermarket, and they were just like, yeah, whatever. So obviously, I have not had the true bagel experience. I will just admit that. But yeah, children eating bagels, I don't know, I guess if they're hungry enough. But when someone says they think they bought them bagels, to me that says no. To me that says she either forgot to get them anything to eat while they were out, or whatever it was she gave them proves that she's a crappy parent. So she's not going to actually say. Yeah, it makes me think of Candace Wells with her children who apparently were fed on frozen pizza. I really can't see those children getting a lot of fresh, healthy food, in my opinion. Anyway, Janie is just about to nail Anita again. I was hoping that Anita was gone for good, but it seems that like she's popped back up again. Huge shame. A box of tidbits is like $7 or $8 probably. Are you talking Tim Hortons or something like that? Because we don't have Tim Hortons here in Australia. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I still haven't looked up poutine to see what it is. We don't have it here in Australia. So I don't even know what it is, and it's something that I meant to look up, but I just haven't gotten around to doing so. But I'm curious now. And I have to say, I might have to look up how to make it and actually make myself some and try it. If it's not something that's too rich or too greasy or something. I don't do well with gravy, fries, gravy, cheese, squeaky cheese. Oh, yeah, we've got places now that sell that, but not with cheese curds, just melted cheese. I mean, I love chips and gravy. That is one of my major go-tos. Curds, I've never had. The places here that do what they call is loaded fries or loaded chips is usually the chips with the gravy and then just regular like cheddar or something melted over the top. I could get on board with poutine. I wouldn't know how to get curd cheese, but I could get mozzarella. I usually have like parmesan or cheddar in the fridge. So, good question, because I don't like cottage cheese. Is curds like cottage cheese? That sort of blobby cheese must squeak. I've never had squeaky cheese. Raw onions with stuffing and gravy. I'd be happy with the raw onions if they were the red onions. But so it's not cottage cheese. Okay. Something I will have to look into. Squeaky cheese. Halloumi, yes. Fried halloumi, oh my gosh, yum. But I don't understand the notion of squeaky cheese. Like it literally squeaks. I'm a little bit baffled, but well, I like mozzarella. Interesting. Interesting. I can't fathom the idea of cheese that squeaks. But yeah. But I could try it if I did it with mozzarella. It squeaks in your teeth. Still not something I have experienced. What makes cheese squeak? That's like doing my head in. um anyway, so it's kind of cheese that hasn't been like matured fully. Okay. Is halloumi squeaky? I don't know, because I usually, if I have halloumi, it's usually something that I dice up and put in my cooking. So by the time I have it, it's it's in a sauce with whatever. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to push on with Janie a little bit because we could be here all day talking about squeaky cheese. Kind of rubbery. Okay, yeah. So like Baby Bell kind of cheese, I guess. I guess that maybe squeaks, possibly. Oh yeah, yeah. I had a work colleague who was from Colombia, and when it was her turn to bring something for morning tea, she would bring a big block of halloumi and she would just grill it for us. And that was her contribution to morning tea. So I guess that would have been squeaky. Um, I've never actually tried halloumi without it having been grilled first or put in cooking. So there you go. I have to admit though, this is coming from someone who is dairy intolerant. So I'm a bit limited in terms of the types of cheese that I can have, and how often I can. So that's probably why I'm a little bit less experienced. Okay, so Anita. Janie has just gone here about Anita claiming that Earl abused her when she was with him. Now, we could speculate that yes, Earl sounds quite loud and aggressive, and that maybe things weren't great between him and Janie, and that's why they're not together anymore. But to outright say that someone was abusive when you don't know, then that's dodgy. That's so wrong. And it's something that Anita has gone out of her way with. And one thing I want to point out here is I was having a look at her posts on Facebook, and this woman is obsessed with the e-files, the Jeffrey and his girlfriend person files, the ones that have been sort of released. She is utterly obsessed with them. And I'm not sure if it's her Facebook or her Instagram, but she just has post after post about them. And that seems to influence the stories that yeah, Bonza, I wasn't going to say it out loud because I don't know what the censorship is like. But she's got post after post about those files and about things relating to those files. And the stories that she's putting out sound like they are based on them. So it doesn't surprise me that she's come out with this.
It's not censored in here, so you say whatever's going to help you get it off your chest. You go ahead.
Well, okay. The kids have been missing for 11 months, right? All of a sudden, Anita comes out of the blue. She said she spoke out before, but now all of a sudden, she comes out of the blue and she has all this stuff to say.
I think that Anita came out when she did because I suspect that she's having some sort of mental issues and possibly needs to be medicated. And I'm not joking with that. Especially there was one live stream, I can't remember which one it was, but there was one when afterwards I came away from it and thought, this woman is really, really unhinged and she's getting worse. So I think that is one of the reasons why she's suddenly popped out when she did. I think something has triggered a bit of a mental health issue with this woman. And now she's out here spouting her mouth out for attention. Yeah, the timing also is interesting. You are so right. Daniel goes quiet. All of a sudden, she comes out with distractions. Is there a connection? It could well be, because you know what? When you look at the things that she says, they seem to always be directed at Malaya's side of the family. Occasionally, things like, when she's talking about Janie or Daniel, she tends to tone it down. Until recently, when Janie called her out, and now she's onto Janie as well. Oh yeah, now we've got Larry. Seriously, it's just never ending. Never ending. But yeah, I think, we can see Anita is full of crap. It's made up stuff. It's about attention. It's also about, she has this need to create chaos. It's a thing for her that it's how she exists. She has to create chaos around herself. Anyway, I had put that aside. I was going to do a video where I was going to go through the psychology behind someone like Anita. And then she seemed to have vanished. So I put it aside. But I think I might need to just come out and do it anyway. Because I think it's a bit like Beetlejuice. I think because people spoke about her, she came back. So I will do that. I won't try and go into all the psychology of it here because we'd be here forever. Anyway.
Where was she when it first started? Why didn't she come out with all this at first? All this information. Did she have to wait to Cindy and Wade break up before she could break her silence?
Okay, and that's misinformation that was put out by Anita. Cindy and Wade did not break up. I know I've said this before, but I just want to clarify it again. Patty had I believe it was a hip operation, correct me if I'm wrong. Patty had an operation. So after her operation, she went and stayed with Cindy. So Cindy, who has all that medical background, could look after her while she's recuperating. So Wade went and stayed with his sister during that period of time. So from what I understand, they are not separated. It was simply a case of him going and staying with his sister while Patty was at Cindy's recuperating.
She's still better than she says we are. If Cindy was telling her stuff about the kids And about Malaya and Daniel, when they were friends, why did she have to bring it out when they're not friends anymore? Why not?
It's Anita's pattern. You just have to look at what she's doing now in terms of the nastiness that's coming out from her about Belinda. So clearly, Cindy got sick of her. She was probably doing a similar sort of thing with Cindy. Cindy probably was like, "Go away, get out of our lives." So then she has to come out and badmouth Cindy. I also believe there's jealousy there, because I think that she does have some sort of, in her mind, she thinks that she should be the one with the connection to Wade or something like that. And I think she's jealous of Cindy, in my opinion. Although apparently now she's down on Wade too, so I'm guessing he's probably put her in her place.
When it first when this all happened. And
Fair
you can't
question.
tell me that Wade, I'm sorry, I keep getting his name mixed up with my brother. You can't tell me that they're not buddies. Come on. You speak for your friends. You speak for your friends. I have friends. I don't speak for them. I let them speak for themselves. My friends have tongues. Wayne has a tongue. Can't he speak for himself? Is he getting to be like Malaya? Because he only speak when somebody comes to his house and has a hidden microphone and records everything he does. Why, if he had so much to say to this Mr. Tint, why couldn't he have told the investigators, or went on YouTube and told them? Why did he have to tell a total stranger? Same with my brother. Why did my brother?
Okay, I think Janie's got the wrong end of the stick here, because I don't believe that the things that Anita was claiming that Wade was telling her were things that Wade told her. And if you go back and you listen to the various bits of audio, what you'll notice is that in terms of the things that Anita claims that Wade told her, initially, they're things that we heard on Tint's video. So what she's done, and this is what she does with all these situations. Thank you, Baby Monkey, very much appreciated. What she has done is she's started with the versions that people know. So she's started, in terms of Wade, she said he told me these things, and the things that she's related are the things that we all have heard on Tint's audio. And then from that, she starts to add in her own little stories. And then people start to believe, because she's already told them what they know. So they think she's established a false credibility. And she's done this with every single person that she's spoken about in this case. She starts with known facts and tells you that, and then when she thinks she's got you sucked in, she's created this false credibility. That's when she starts making things up. So Janie has definitely got the wrong end of the stick here, and I don't believe that there was any sort of conversation between Anita and Wade. I do believe that Anita was probably only there one time babysitting. There's issues with her timeline where, according to her, she was there for a week, but apparently that week spanned from early May right through until July, when the baby was taken by CPS. And there's even one instance when she talks about getting back to Cindy's place after Tint had been, and I thought that Tint had been there in August. Now, I may be wrong, but her week spans over a 2-month period at the very least. She's basically placing herself on location for everything in this case, which is physically impossible.
Have to shoot off to a total stranger. Like,
Sorry, I'll back that up a bit because I paused in the wrong spot.
they actually speak for themselves. Like, if you want something to be heard, don't go through somebody else. Speak for yourself. That's why God gave you a tongue and God gave you 2 ears to listen and to say what you have to say. Like, people have got to start speaking for themselves. I don't hide behind Daniel. I say what I have to say. I don't care if he agrees with it. I don't care if Malaya agrees with it. I don't care if the whole world don't agree with me. I'm going to say what I have to say. And if people don't believe me, that's their problem. I'm telling the truth. And when Jack and Lily are found alive, people are going to sit back and say, you know what? Janie was telling the truth.
And Janie's gone into her little fantasy world now. Now I thought I'd gone back, but I must have scooted forward a bit. She's not happy with her brother for speaking out on that phone call to someone. The instance where we have that audio of him talking about Daniel basically saying he doesn't have to move out and stuff like that. So I think there is, I don't know, can someone answer that? I'm thinking Daniel might be older, but I really don't know. So that's a good question. They're very, very close in age. Yeah, this was when he came out and he said that Daniel was on the deed. But yeah, I think there is definitely resentment there towards her brother for talking about family stuff that clearly she didn't want put out there. And it makes me question if what he's put out has been put out with a bit of a bias and may not be 100% spot on. I think it's less than 2 years between them. But you could be right there about Justin being older. I don't know. Yeah, thinking about it, I can't quite figure out who would be the older one. But Janie's gone back to, people are going to say, well, Janie was telling the truth when they're found alive. I know Janie would wish, I know she wishes that was going to be the situation. Sadly, that's not how it's going to be. I think maybe this is the only way that Janie copes with the entire situation. Maybe she's convinced herself that none of the other stuff happened and that the children will be found alive. I don't know. But she keeps pushing this like it's real. It's like a little fantasy for her.
Was telling the truth all along.
Oh, hang
And
on.
see how the truth all along. And when Jack and Lily are found alive, people are going to sit back and say, you know what? Janie was telling the truth. Daniel was telling the truth all along. And see how they feel. How are these people going to feel that are bashing us and negative comments when the truth comes out? How are they going to feel? Are they going to apologize to us? Is AB going to apologize? Is Mike going to apologize? Is Shenanigans going to apologize? Is Sonny going to apologize? I bet not.
I think that AB and the vodka man do owe apologies to a lot of people connected to the case because they've gone over the line and have bullied. But as for other content creators, all we've done is question what's been said. All we've done is point out irregularities, point out lies. That's not bullying. That's us looking at things that don't quite add up. So I think Janie is super sensitive. I've not heard Sunny say anything that I would consider to be bullying. I don't listen to shenanigans. I listened once or twice, but I just don't have the time. If I have the time to listen to content creators who are covering this case, my first choice is always going to be Justin. The others, I just don't have the time. But I know that from listening to Sunny's content when she was doing a lot of it, there was nothing that I heard that made me think that she was in any way bullying, in any way out of line or anything like that. So again, Janie's just showing sensitivities here, in my opinion.
Mike is apologizing to me right now and says he's sorry for treating me the way he is. You know why? He wants me to unblock him so he could talk to me again, so we can get some more stuff, so we can spread more bullshit about me. Well, guess what, Mike? You're staying blocked, and I don't give a shit what you say.
Yep. Fire. Oh, crazy. Wow. Crazy is under a tornado warning. Well, I hope you are safe. Wow. Things that we don't have to worry about here in Australia. Be safe. Check in when you can, please. I'm just about at the point where I have to dip because the chihuahuas are awake and Jasper is looking like he's getting ready to cause trouble. You've already heard the barking in the background, and I think that's only going to escalate. So I'll just comment on what Janie said here, and then I think we'll have to wrap it up. So it'll be a slightly shorter one. The fact that I managed to do a live stream with Jasper here is pretty amazing, but yeah, I had to go. So I think she's right. She's spot on, because Vodka Man basically teases Janie. He teases her, he bullies her. So just trying to see what Mouse is ripping up. Mouse? What's that? Okay, I'm going to speed this up because I think we are just about to get into naughty Chihuahua time. Yeah, I think it's hilarious that Janie has blocked Vodka Man. She's so right about it, though, because all he wants from her is more content that he can use to bully her some more, to make fun of her some more. He's not doing... Yeah, Fluffy finally barked. Well, Tucker. Yeah, Janie's right. He only wants her to talk to him for content. And not for content in terms of to be able to talk about Lily and Jack, to be able to analyse what she's saying, but so that he can bully her, so he can throw more hate on her. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there because I'm very much aware of the fact that Mouse is ripping something up, which is hopefully not something that I'm going to miss. And Jasper's vanished from the room and gone very quiet. So this is definitely a good time for me to wrap it up here. The stuff that I was going to talk about at the start of this video, I think I'll just do that as a video and put it out tonight, just as a straight video. And that way then tomorrow I can finish off the Janie audio, and then maybe we can just move on to something different. There's a lot of things I do want to talk about. So thank you so much for coming in, everyone. Sorry to wrap it up really quickly again. I would have liked to have pushed on, but I also would like my house to remain intact. So thank you for coming in. I appreciate every one of you. Please remember to hit the like on the way out. And if you're someone who's on replay, please leave a comment. Yeah, when the dogs go quiet, it's time to go and find out what's going on. So on that note, thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.